I never imagined that the people who gave me life would one day drag me into court, demanding a piece of the life I built without them. The moment I stepped into that courtroom, I froze. There they were. My parents, sitting stone-faced, like strangers. 22 years ago, they made it clear I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was just a burden, a shame they wanted to erase. I was 16, scared, and pregnant. Instead of protecting me, they kicked me out in the middle of the night with nothing but a backpack and the clothes on my back. I still remember standing on that porch, shivering in the dark, wondering how love could turn so cruel. That night, I thought my life was over, but I fought tooth and nail to survive. I worked 3 jobs, finished school, raised my child alone, and built everything they thought I couldn't. And now, after all these years, they dared to walk back into my life, not with an apology, not with love, but with a lawsuit. They thought they could take what was mine. They thought they could break me again. But this time, they had no idea who they were up against. Hey everyone, welcome back to Revenge Flame, the channel where true emotions, shocking betrayals, and unforgettable acts of revenge come alive. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon so you never miss a story that will leave you speechless. Every week, we dive into stories that aren't just about drama, they're about strength, survival, and the kind of revenge that makes you stop and think. These aren't fairy tales. They're raw, real-life moments where pain turns into power and silence transforms into justice. Today's story is especially close to the heart. It's about a daughter cast aside in her darkest hour, only to rise stronger than ever. And when her parents re-entered her life decades later, they had no idea what was waiting for them. So grab a seat, because this one, you won't forget. I grew up in what looked like a picture-perfect family from the outside. My parents were respected in our small town, the kind of people others called strict but good. Behind closed doors, though, love always felt conditional, earned, not freely given. My father was a man obsessed with reputation, and my mother followed his lead. Mistakes weren't tolerated, and appearances mattered more than feelings. By the time I reached 11th grade, I was a quiet, hard-working girl who rarely broke rules. But one mistake, one moment of being young and naive changed everything. When I found out I was pregnant at 16, I thought maybe my parents would hold me tighter, guide me through it. Instead, they turned cold. To them, I wasn't a daughter anymore. I was a disgrace. The night they kicked me out is burned into my memory. My mother didn't cry, my father didn't yell, they just told me to pack a bag and leave. No hugs, no second chances. I stood in the driveway, holding a backpack with a few clothes, while the house I grew up in closed its doors on me forever. The only light in my world was the baby growing inside me. I didn't know how I'd raise a child, but I knew one thing. I wouldn't be like them. I promised myself my child would never feel abandoned. Years later, that child became my reason to fight, my reason to survive. I worked jobs no teenager should, studied late at night, and built a life from the ground up. My parents, they disappeared, until one day decades later they returned. But not with love, not with regret. They came back with lawyers. For more than 2 decades, I lived as though my parents didn't exist. I raised my child, earned my degree, and eventually started my own small business. It wasn't easy, but every obstacle only fueled me to prove them wrong. My child grew into everything they said we'd never be: strong, kind, and successful. Then one morning, a thick envelope arrived. Inside were legal papers. My parents were suing me. My first reaction was confusion. Suing me for what? As I read the documents, my hands trembled. They were demanding financial support, claiming they were elderly and destitute, and that as their daughter, it was my duty to provide for them. The irony hit me like a punch. These were the same people who had slammed the door in my face when I begged for help. The same parents who left me homeless, pregnant, and terrified. And now, after ignoring me for 22 years, they thought they could just reappear and drain the life I had built. Family whispers soon followed. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years started calling, urging me to do the right thing and reminding me of blood obligations. Some even painted me as heartless, conveniently forgetting the nights I slept on a friend's couch or skipped meals so my baby could eat. The pressure was suffocating. It wasn't just about money, it was about control. My parents hadn't forgiven me. They hadn't changed. This was just another way to shame me, to break me down, to remind me of the power they once held. But they underestimated one thing. The girl they abandoned was gone. The woman standing in that courtroom was someone they had created, but not in the way they expected. At first, I thought the lawsuit was some kind of sick joke. Maybe a mistake, maybe paperwork sent to the wrong person. But when I saw my parents' signatures clear, deliberate and bold, my stomach dropped. It was real. They weren't asking for help. They were demanding it. The betrayal cut deeper than when they first kicked me out. Back then, I was a teenager, powerless and alone. But now, I had built everything with my own hands. Every dollar I saved, every sleepless night studying, every sacrifice. I made for my child. They wanted to take that from me as if it were theirs to claim. The worst part wasn't even the lawsuit. It was the things they said in court documents. Words like ungrateful, irresponsible, morally corrupt. They painted me as the failure, as if they hadn't abandoned me when I needed them most. According to them, I owed them not only money but respect. Relatives joined in too. I got messages saying, "They're still your parents. Without them, you wouldn't even be here." That line hit me like fire in my chest. Yes, they gave me life, but they also tried to take it from me when they threw me out. When they left me cold and starving. Anger boiled inside me, but so did something else, clarity. For the first time, I realized this wasn't about family. It was about power. They had lost control of me years ago, and now this lawsuit was their last weapon. But what they didn't know was that I had a weapon too, the truth. And when it came out, their carefully polished image would crumble faster than they could ever imagine. The day of the hearing arrived, and my parents walked into the courtroom looking smug, as if the outcome was already written. They expected me to cower, to bow my head in shame the way I did when I was 16. But this time, I wasn't that broken girl. I was a woman with evidence, with a story they didn't want the world to hear. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't just defend myself, I laid everything bare. I told the judge how I had been thrown out of my home at 16, pregnant and alone, left to survive on scraps while they protected their reputation. I submitted proof, old letters from social workers, medical records showing I had no family support, even testimony from friends who took me in when my parents refused. Then came the moment they didn't expect. I presented a voicemail my father had left years ago, one I had saved but never replayed until now. His words echoed in the silent courtroom. "You're no daughter of mine. Don't ever come back." The room went dead quiet. My parents' faces drained of color. Their so-called image of being respectable, loving parents shattered in front of everyone. The judge looked at them with disgust. Not only was their lawsuit dismissed, but the court warned them against further harassment. My revenge wasn't loud or violent, it was truth. The same truth they tried to bury for decades. They wanted to break me again, but instead, I broke the illusion they'd spent a lifetime building. Walking out of that courtroom, I didn't just win a case. I won back the power they stole from me at 16. When the gavel struck and the judge dismissed their case, it felt like a weight I'd carried for 22 years finally lifted. My parents didn't even look at me as they left the courtroom. Their heads hung low, not in shame for what they'd done to me, but in humiliation, that their perfect facade had crumbled in front of strangers. The fallout was immediate. Relatives who once lectured me about duty went silent. A few even called to apologize after hearing the full truth. Others avoided me altogether, unable to face the fact that they had sided with people who abandoned their own child. As for me, I didn't feel triumph in their downfall, I felt peace. For once, the past wasn't haunting me anymore. They could no longer hurt me, no longer rewrite the story of who I was. I had taken back control. The girl they kicked out at 16 had finally closed the door, not with bitterness, but with strength. And this time, it was me choosing to walk away. Looking back now, I don't see the lawsuit as just a legal battle. It was the final chapter of a story that started when I was 16. For years, I carried the pain of being abandoned, the shame of being treated like I didn't matter. And when my parents resurfaced, I feared for a moment that they might break me all over again. But instead, they gave me something unexpected: closure. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying someone else. It's about proving to yourself that you survived, that you thrived, and that no one can take that away from you. By telling the truth in that courtroom, I didn't just win a case, I reclaimed my voice. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by love and loyalty. My child, my friends, the people who stood by me when I had nothing, they are my true family. The ones who turned their backs on me, they're just people I used to know. So, if you're ever made to feel like you're not enough, remember this: you don't have to beg for a seat at someone else's table. You can build your own and sit at it proudly. In the end, my parents didn't just lose their lawsuit. They lost the right to claim me as theirs. And that, more than anything, was justice. So that's my story of survival, of strength, and of finally standing tall against the very people who once tried to break me. But now, I want to hear from you. If you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Would you have walked away quietly, or stood your ground and fought back? Do you believe parents who abandon their children deserve a second chance? Or is some damage simply beyond repair? Your thoughts mean more than you know. And I'd love to read your perspective in the comments. If this story resonated with you, please take a moment to like this video. It really helps the channel grow and reach more people who need to hear that they're not alone in their struggles. Share it with a friend who might need encouragement. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Every week, we bring you real-life stories of betrayal, justice, and powerful comebacks that will leave you thinking long after the video ends. And remember, revenge doesn't always mean hurting someone else. Sometimes the greatest revenge is simply living well, telling your truth, and refusing to let anyone steal your voice again. I'll see you in the next story.